Hello viewers, my name's Alan and welcome to my home workshop. In this video I continue with my reconditioning of an AR5 tool and cutter grinder and talk about what I had to do to sort out a protective boot for the screw that's used to raise and lower the knee. A repair I had to make to one of the side tables with a piece broken out of it, and also some pieces I had to make to replace the cable winding mechanism that's used to move the table left and right. I hope you find it interesting. Now, like other tool and cutter grinders, the AR5 is supposed to have a rubber boot around the jack screw that raises and lowers the knee, and you can see the remains of one on this picture of another machine. I was unable to find any source of that boot, and so I went to eBay and found a generic item. That length turned out to be too big for the job and stopped the knee from coming down as low as it needed to, so I finished up cutting it in half. Well, this is with the table wound down fully and with the shortened boot fully compressed. With this arrangement we can't go right to the bottom, but then again there doesn't seem to be any reason to go lower than that anyway when you look at what's happening up above. And anyway, from here right at the top of the ways now, and I can't see that I in fact would ever go higher than that, but the boot's still got plenty of stretch left in it, so we could. And you can see that the arrangement I've got on the bottom here on this jack screw bearing housing allows this to move. I might pull that off so you can just see what's going on there. Right, so I've got a machined a groove in this housing for a circlip, and then put a large washer over the outside of this housing, and then I pull the boot down and just work the last what would you call it last piece of the boot over that ring, and then that arrangement holds it down, stops it from obviously pulling up when you wind the thing out. So in my first go at this, fixing the bottom of the boot, the classic design error, the idea was to have two discs, as you see here, with holes, threaded holes, tapped holes in the one that's inside the boot. That on there, set of screws all around, great. But then I realised that with the thing assembled like that, even with the right size hole in the bottom, I wouldn't be able to actually install the circlip, which you'll see, which holds this lot down. Yeah, so it's a catch-22. If this thing was assembled first and the bottom edge clamped like that, it wasn't going to be possible to get access to get this past the circlip if the circlip was there, or if the circlip wasn't there, to then put the circlip on afterwards. So it was just a design error. As my machine had no provision for fixing the top of the boot or the bellows, I had to make my own bracket for that. Up inside here, not sure how well you'll be able to see that, and see the metal plate that I made up, and put a boss on there, on that plate, to fix the top of the boot to. And the plate is in turn fixed to the underside of the knee with 4 screws. These are just 2 Z sections that I made, and then little spaces to get it was a bit of a gamble working out just how deep to make the Z section, so I made them slightly longer than or deeper than they needed to be. then I could put spacers in there to get the height exactly right, which is just up underneath the double locking nuts that are at the top of the screw there. All seemed to work out all right, but I didn't think I would have much chance of making this in one piece. I'm sure from the factory it would have been one piece, but you can see when I made the Z sections, I think I made them both the same height, and then found that the distance, the bottom of the knee on this side is different height to the bottom of the knee on that side. So you can see the bushes that I made for separation are actually different heights, so the thing would be level when installed. And obviously what we call a python clamp here, or a hose clamp, shuts the whole thing up there. So you can see that the boot that's on there now is about half of the what came with it originally, or the piece that I bought, I should say. And it was a bit arbitrary how much I shortened it by, but I thought, well, if I cut it in half, then I've got two goes at it if this one fails prematurely or whatever. The holes that you can see in the bottom of this piece were from a first attempt where I was, I can't see them very clearly, but anyway, my first effort was to have a washer in there and a bit of a sandwich to put a metal fastening on there, but the design evolved into what you see now. Anyway, now I've got to try and get this boot back over that bottom washer. Well, I won't bore you with me trying to do that. Well, that didn't turn out to be as hard as I thought it would be. There's enough stretch in this to make it in fact quite easy to pull that back over. So yes, that's the boot. I'll see if I can find a link to the item which I actually bought. I think it was $20 Australian delivered from our best mates in Asia, but if I can find a link to it, I'll put it there. So looking now at this side table, one of them was intact, but this one had the mounting corner of the mounting flange broken out. So I'll pull it off and just show you what I mean, and then I'll show you what I did to fix it. Just held on by two, I think they're M6 screws, M5 I think, looking at them. So this obviously just butts up against that, and it has this V cutout to fit around the table as it slides over. And with this one, it should have two corners like that moulded on, but this one was broken off. So as you can see, I made up a repair piece to fit there. We've got a couple of photos, I think, showing how that was done. While I have that off, we'll have a look at the winding cable. So just pull back a little bit. You can see as we wind the handle, it moves the table. So there's a cable here that's wrapped around a drum on this shaft, and it spools on and off that drum. And the drum has like a very coarse thread on it, which lays the cable left to right as you're going backwards and forwards. Now, when I got this machine, none of this was here. The shaft and the drum were, fortunately, but the cable was missing, and these cable anchor blocks were missing as well, so I had to make those up. Do I have a closer look at those? Get some light there. Maybe from over there. Okay, so perhaps you can see this block here. Let's come back this way a little bit further. See all of the block here. Okay, so I just milled this out of no, I've forgotten now, it might have been out of a piece of thick angle iron, and it has an M6 bolt into it, which I've drilled a hole through to take the cable, and then there's a locking nut on it. I thought it might be worth showing another view of them, so that you can see, if you have to make some, if you're unlucky enough like me to have to make some, that the dimensions are very important. They have to be able to slide into the this groove in the table. So the dimensions are actually quite critical, well, important rather than critical perhaps. You have to have that sort of clearance. So that, I don't know what the original factory items look like, but I can only assume it would be something similar to this, because you have to be able to get a bolt screwed in and cable through, but it can't be any wider than that, etc. So I think the factory originals presumably look something like that, and I think maybe you could just see the screw that goes down into the top of the block to hold it in position. Looks like my little coils come loose too. Never mind. Yeah, so I just thought it was worth oh, the other thing you can see just peeping here as well, actually, the additional, or the bump stops that I created for the rollers, so that they don't just hit a screw head, which is what would happen just with the factory setup. So I've made a little keeper here which runs the full width for the race to the roller race to bump into. This is just a collar made from a piece of 8mm, I think, maybe 10mm diameter rod with a hole, and just tap for a grub screw. Nothing magic about that. Okay, so I put this where are we? So I put this adjustment on both ends to make it easy to get the tension in the cable right. And winding the cable on the drum is quite a business actually. I had to practice quite a bit with some string first to work out how to do it. But it turned out to be quite convenient to be able to pull up the slack from either end. So that's why I did it that way. Let's see if we can get a picture from underneath. So looking up from underneath, you can see the cable anchor block here, which is just screws up into the underside of the table. The cable comes along through here, wraps around the drum, goes through a hole in the drum actually, and then, as you can see, as you wind the table along, the cable winds, wraps and unwraps on that drum. So with a bit of persistence you'll work out eventually how to wind it so that that's the way it works. But that's how you get the left and right movement of the table. And there's a couple of thrust bearings in here and in there as well, and an oiling point there. So I was fortunate that the drum was at least present. The handle was, I think that handle was present actually. Anyway, if the drum hadn't been there, I'd have been in trouble, because that was there, it's just a fairly simple matter of, I'm not sure what size this cable is now. I'll have a look in a minute and just make a note of it in case anybody else needs to know. And you don't use stainless steel cable for this, you use the plated stuff with lots of fine strands because it's much more flexible. And I've got quite a bit hanging off the end here. I was originally going to trim it to length here, but I realised that when the side table went on, it covered it up, and if I have to take the cable off again, having that spare, this extra length, make it much easier to put the cable on and pull it tight while I'm locking it off. So as for the cable, the stuff that I used for the table winding mechanism, perhaps you'll be able to see. It's 2mm diameter, and it's the same sort of stuff as this, just in the smaller diameter. So this is 4mm stuff, but it's what they call 7x7. There's 7 strands, each of 7 strands, and it's galvanised wire rope, not stainless steel, because the galvanised stuff is much more flexible. And for repeated winding on and off a drum, that's what you need. This just came from a local big box hardware store. It was cheap and easy to source. Get in there and stay there. And you can probably see this one. I tend to put heat shrink tubing on the end to keep the loose ends under control so they don't stab you. Right. Well, I've decided that I've covered everything that I'm going to cover in this project now, so I'm calling it done. It's been a lot of work, but it's been interesting as well. Hopefully it's been interesting and helpful for you guys. And as this will be my last video before Christmas, perhaps I'll wish you and your families a happy and safe Christmas and Happy New Year.